Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm here to talk about the Virgo full moon, which is happening this Saturday on the 24th of February. I use universal time. You can always see the details of what I'm talking about at the upper left side of the chart, including the fact that I use tropical astrology and I work with whole sign houses, and that will apply also to the personal readings that I do. I get that question quite a lot. Tropical astrology. The tropical zodiac is based on the movement of the sun and not based on the constellations. It's nonetheless not inferior to sidereal astrology, which is based on the constellations, um, despite some of the grumpy comments that every now and then appear. I use what used to be called Greenwich Mean Time, what is now called Universal Time, because so many of you are coming from all over the world. And so it's kind of the midpoint, it's the beginning of the solar day, as it were. And so I use that because you can more easily abstract from that. So if you're on the east coast of North America, you take away 5 hours from universal time. If you are on let's say if you're in South Asia, in India, you would add 5.5 hours at this time of the year, etc. So what I wanted to say also is I'm always grateful for your comments. I forget every time to ask you to like and subscribe. Many of my viewers are not subscribers, and I would be delighted if you would join us. And I always appreciate your comments. I would like that to be more in the vein of constructive discussion as opposed to sarcastic comments, because it's very difficult to respond if the comment is sarcastic. And luckily, that's very rare. But I prefer to try to understand each other rather than try and win brownie points for being right. So let's try to discuss things in the comments, and and you might learn something, I might learn something, and then we go away feeling better about the interaction instead of feeling frustrated. Also, just to point out, I do not monetize this channel. So if you would like to support me, you can buy me a cup of coffee. That's in the description below, where you'll find lots more information about each video. And if you can't do that at this point, then no problem with that. Just give me a like or a subscribe, and that also helps me grow the channel so more people can find my work. Having said that, I'm having to scale back my personal readings because it's just too much. The demand has been extremely high, and I'm trying to get a book out of my head and into print. And so I just have to pull it back so that I can manage to do that and publish in the next 3 or 4 months, which is my target. So with all of that aside, let's have a look at this Virgo full moon. We're into Pisces season now. Today I'm doing this on the 19th of February. So just moments ago, the sun, actually we can have a look at that, where I am right now. The sun just entered into Pisces. And that is my sign. I have a stellium there, so I always like this season quite a lot. And so it's a season where we can look at aspects of our experience of our spiritual life, our relationship to how we engage with this world, the three-dimensional world, or the so-called real world, if you want to call it that. And today, rather on the 24th of February, the full moon is going to be at 5 degrees of Pisces, opposing it's 5 degrees, 23 arc minutes of a degree, and it's opposing the moon in Virgo. So this Virgo full moon happens usually once a year, sometimes twice, depending on the movement of the sun, because our calendar doesn't line up with the astrological movements or the astronomical movements. So sometimes we get two moons. This time we only get the one, and it's in the sign of Virgo in opposition to the sun. So always at a full moon, the moon is opposing the sun. And this gives us an opportunity to reflect on the topics in that lunar house, wherever the moon is. And you can see by this chart, and this, by the way, this is the ascendant in Greenwich Mean Time, or in in the location of universal time. It's a Cancer ascendant. In fact, as it happens, I've removed the markers, but the midheaven is also with Saturn, 9 degrees of Pisces, which I'll describe in a minute. But just to say that this does reflect the chart as it appears in universal time, but it doesn't have any specific meaning. It is better to look at your individual chart and how it's applying in that way. So when the moon is opposite the sun, we have an opportunity to reflect on the topics of the house where the moon is, but in relation to the house where the sun is. And in this case, of course, lots is happening in Pisces. And we see also that the majority of activity is happening in the area between the Aquarius, now quite full still with the mini stellium in Aquarius, and Taurus sign. So we're moving through a condensed phase of understanding what is especially linked to society and what we believe and what we think is right or important in terms of our collective experience, as well as how we fit that into our individual ideals and individual values. So we'll have a look at all of this. I think this is an interesting way also whenever the Virgo moon comes to oppose the sun in Pisces, to reflect on how to make practical our spiritual ambitions. It's Pisces is not, let's say it this way. Pisces is where we start to understand that, as opposed to Aquarius, for example, where we think that we are a collective of individual beings within a group, Pisces says, no, there's no distinction. There's no difference. But Virgo is like, well, can you explain that? How does that come about? And that moon in Virgo is really trying to understand the specifics of this and make that practical. How can I relate to this in my everyday life? In some ways, also, when the sun is in Pisces and the moon is in Virgo, it gives a nice balance in terms of being able to express or to visualize things that are more creative or more maybe subjective. The Virgo energy wants to be precise. It wants to be exact, and it can look at things with a certain degree of criticism, with a way of, with the intention ultimately of improving things. Sometimes that can just simply boil down to being judgy, but that doesn't have to be the case. It's traditionally considered like a purification process, meaning that the idea is to become aware of all the flaws so we can extract them, move away from them, and be in that Piscean energy of pure being. Yesterday, I did a video with Roisin Eve Campbell, which you can find on my channel. And we talked about the North Node and Chiron, which is still exact and building to an exact conjunction as I'm speaking, but even at the full moon, still exact and still conjunct rather. And that energy is really about healing our sense of identity. And it's interesting to understand how much we hold on to our identity without being aware of it. And then that Virgo energy can help us realize where we're holding on to suffering unnecessarily. And this opposition is also that Virgo Pisces opposition is also the axis of victim and martyr energy. Now, we see that in all kinds of ways in our own experience. And that's where the moon can show that up for us, can show us where that's coming to, to our relationships, or our relationship to work, for example, or relationship to money, etc., or health. It's also a health axis. But it's also where we see, what is our own role, especially with the Chiron North Node in Aries. What is our own role in maintaining that suffering? And it brings to mind a book that by a wonderful woman called Caroline Myss, who I have followed again for many, many years. She was a really big influence in my early understanding of how we function psychologically and energetically, and how we heal. And she came to the conclusion as a medical intuitive, as a healer, that a lot of people don't want to heal. And this is, for me, this describes this victim martyr energy of the Pisces and Virgo axis, where people in many cases have an identity around their wounding, an identity around whatever their health issue is, or their mental state, their psychological state. Their identity is so strong that they won't relinquish that to feel better, because it's serving a purpose. It can be a number of different things. It can be about being right. That's a kind of a Virgo thing, about being right, saying, you know, my parents were wrong. I'm right. I'm right to be angry. And I'm going to hold that anger, even if it means that I'm losing health over that, just giving us one example. Or I need to play the victim so I can have attention, for example. So Caroline Myss wrote this amazing book after she realized so many people just didn't want to heal. And the book is indeed called Why People Don't Want to Heal. And so, or is it Why Don't People Heal? I can't remember, but look for it. Caroline Myss, MYSS, Why People Don't Heal, or something like that. An amazing book from an amazing woman, and I think this is a really interesting time to read it, because it's certainly highlighted in the energy right now. That victim martyr energy creeps in lots of different ways. So, like for me, for example, because I have a Cancer rising and I have a Pisces stellium, it's really interesting how the astrology sometimes pushes us in a particular direction, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously. So I knew much of this energy is already there. It's affecting my chart very, very directly in many ways. So part of me plans things according to the cycles of astrology, and part of me, I just get into this energy which really motivates me really strongly. So I've got, of course, my third house ruled by Mercury, Virgo. I'll talk about that Mercury in Pisces in a minute, which I also have. But the point being, not to talk about me, but just as an idea around what this looks like in terms of the Virgo martyring energy, the Virgo Pisces axis of martyring and victimization, where I was seeing myself just working so hard. Third house is busyness, it's communications, it's your everyday sort of goals and the stuff that you've got to deal with in terms of emails and all that kind of stuff. I'm going through an incredibly busy time, finding it really hard to keep up with. So I get so many emails a day, it just almost freaks me out at times, with each one coming with a certain demand. And so it's part of being your own business person, which is also a third house thing. And when I realized I just have to change this, I got to the point where I have to change the way I present my work on my website, be really clear. There were certain things I didn't have time to update, so I updated that. I just changed the way that I work with people and how they are able to work with me, including the pricing, including the timing, and all these different things. And also realizing that I just need to scale things back, because I was hearing myself go into that victim mode, which is like, I just can't cope. I can't do this thing. It's too much. I can't deal with this. And that's super disempowering. And so once you overcome that, and once you realize the pattern is there, you take action, and it releases that low vibration energy of the victim and martyr. So this is part of the healing North Node Chiron, understanding the awareness. How do I identify myself? What is my individual, let's say, role in this? What is my responsibility in this? And this will, of course, be different for each of us, depending on how it's affecting the chart. And I'll talk about that as we go forward, sign by sign. But just overall, reflect on this area. What is it that I find myself repeatedly complaining about? Repeated complaints is in that category of victimization and martyrdom. Being a martyr is like, oh, I have to do this thing. Nobody ever thanks me. Nobody ever cares. I'm always the one left holding the bag, and so on. And we have to come to that place where we realize it's a choice. Mercury is always about choosing. It's a choice. Mercury rules this Virgo. In this case now, with the full moon, we have Mercury conjunct the sun, and we also have Saturn conjunct the sun. And as I mentioned, we have Saturn actually on the midheaven, which would appear at the 9th degree, but I just didn't put it in there. Now, interestingly, this is where the planets, especially Mercury, which is normally ruling Virgo and exalted in Virgo, meaning it loves all the details, it loves the fussiness, it loves the facts and getting down to the whys and wherefores. In Pisces, it's much more abstract. And so the abstraction of Virgo and Pisces actually can allow for a certain amount of out of the box thinking. It's not always very organized. It can be incredibly disorganized. If you saw my office, you would see this is a great example of a Pisces Mercury, where every now and then I go through a blitz of tidying up, and then somehow it all just kind of gets more chaotic again within hours or days. Anyway, the point being that when a planet is also with the sun, it's considered under the beams of the sun, and therefore it's also not giving us its full impact. And when Mercury is with the sun, it tends to lose the details. It tends to lose the grasp of what is clear and sharp in focus, and it gets into a more broad perspective, which can be incredibly useful right now. There's a principle, or there's a value in terms of our spiritual values in the sign of Pisces. So maybe the Virgoan detail is not so necessary right now. We need to take action based on a higher principle. That's also Saturn in Pisces. Now, Saturn itself is also with the sun, which means it's also under the beams, or what some traditions call burnt by the sun. Under the beams of the sun means that it is in this exchange of energy that is, it can be it's a rebirth period for all these planets that come back to the sun once a year in the case of Saturn, and perhaps more often in the case of Mercury. But it also can undermine the energy of the planet itself. And so with Saturn's sun, there's a bit of a battle going on in terms of authority, in terms of what is important. And so this can also be reflected if we look at this from a global point of view, mundane point of view. We see the people in the moon, the public in the moon. The public are saying, we want to know more. We want facts. We want to understand better. And the leadership, if we look at it from the perspective of the government or global situations, the leadership is being a bit vague. This is frustration, sort of building. There will be on the 28th of March an almost triple conjunction. Certainly the planets are extremely tight. First, Mercury goes into the sun, and then Saturn in the sun. And so and then Mercury, Saturn. So those three planets will be really, really tight in the almost 10th degree, so late in the 9th degree of Pisces. So this is a thing that's continuing, let's say, all this week and all next week, where we're really looking at what is our authority, what is our relationship to our greater perspective on life, our greater perspective on what we believe, what we have faith in, what we consider to be our spiritual duty. This also with Saturn can be about boundaries. Boundaries are really important, and Saturn in Pisces helps to create boundaries where it's not so easy to find them, because as I mentioned earlier, Pisces is about where we don't have boundaries, where we recognize that there is no boundary between you and I, between anything, but we have to function in the everyday life. And of course, the everyday life is Virgo. It represents the sixth natural house in the zodiac. So it's all about the nitty-gritty of every day. It's about the job, showing up at the job. It's about how you make your meals, how you cook your food, how you decide to take care of your health, all those what seem to be minor decisions, which actually influence the rest of your life day to day. And Pisces is like, more amorphous. It's much less tangible. So I invite you right now to really reflect on areas of your life where you might be unconsciously, because usually these things happen unconsciously, or they're old habits, disempowering yourself around ideas that, you're stuck in a situation. It has to be this way. Woe is me. It's just never going to get better. I can't do anything about this. A feeling of helplessness and victimization is coming from an attitude. It's a point of view. We also have ongoingly this Pluto and Mars and Venus still conjunct in the eighth house, really powerfully, in this particular chart, really powerfully in Aquarius. And I have done videos on that, so I won't go too deep into that. But really calling in the energy of this focus on society, our focus on the collective, our focus on our ideology. I'll go sign by sign, and you'll see that more specifically where it concerns your particular sun, moon, and rising sign. But we also have as well Mars and Venus coming together on the 22nd. So just 2 days before the full moon, Mars and Venus are conjoining, which is starting a new cycle of relationships, a new cycle of recognizing the influence of masculine and feminine, the influence of our capacity to integrate or to take action or receive or to give. And that can be described as the sort of yin and yang of your day-to-day experience. And that's in a trine to Jupiter, which is extremely empowering. And Jupiter is ruling the sun at this time. Of course, remember, Mercury is ruling the moon, and Jupiter itself is in a broad trine, in an earth trine to this moon. So really lots of favorable, constructive energy here that allows us to see things with a kind of a fresh start energy. Even though it's a full moons usually are times of realization and a growing awareness of something. And you could say that could be for example, the new moon of 2 weeks ago, or it could be, for example, the Virgo new moon from last September. But either way, whatever the cycle is that you're referring to, there's something that we're realizing here based on this axis between the Virgo and Pisces energy, but supported by this axis of understanding, either perhaps collectively or socially or ideologically, what is fair, what is humane, what is right, based on our beliefs, based on our spiritual understanding, based on our ability to abstract from the minutiae, from the details, based on our values, the Jupiter in the 11th house, and all of that being reflected back into the Virgo energy of what can I do about this? What needs to change? What needs to be purified? What action needs to happen here? Virgo can be extremely helpful in pointing out the things that are not good or not helpful or not appropriate. But that should always come with a self-reference first. What can I do differently before it comes with the finger pointing in the world around? So we have to purify our minds. This is also Mercury. Mercury represents our thinking, our thought process, and the moon itself represents the mind, the emotions, all of the fluctuations of the mind are represented by the moon. What else did I want to say? Yeah, I'll keep referring to this later as I go through the week, but and especially I'm doing a Q&A on astrology and on how we can integrate spirituality and astrology on the 22nd, which is when Venus and Mars come together at 6:30 European time, which is 5:30 Universal Time in the afternoon. And I will talk more about these things, but just briefly, this Uranus transit through Taurus is part of our story that we're constantly battling with right now, of an increase in totalitarianism, fascism, othering, and a disruption of our values. It was the case through the 1930s, right up to the Second World War. And it was forecasted in 2018 when Uranus moved in to Taurus. And it's to be expected for at least the next 2.5 years. So we're still grappling with something here that is growing. It's an ideological issue. We now have to really grapple with what is the ideological driver here. I definitely see the very long, almost century-long Pluto sextiling Neptune as a big theme in terms of public manipulation and propaganda. We have to contend with that ongoingly, and to question Virgo, the Mercury ruled Virgo, question what is real, what is accurate, what is true, what am I realizing about this, where we also, again, Mercury, Sun in Pisces may not be so clear about what is being expressed, especially when we look at Saturn, Sun by rulers, by leaders, by authority figures. Neptune in Pisces is multiplying this effect. We've seen that increase in propagandizing from all sides. There's no good guys in this. Really powerfully since March 2011, when Neptune moved into Pisces. So, right, I think that's all I wanted to say. Just check my notes before I go on the sign by sign forecast and see. I think I've said it. And I haven't slept last night. I think I had 3 hours of sleep, so I'm a little bit hazy. So forgive me if this is a little bit wobbly, but to be honest, I've been really, really thinking a lot about Julian Assange, who tomorrow morning is going to be in his hearing, extradition hearing. I've been following that case for a very long time, since before it happened in 2009. I started to follow WikiLeaks. It's basically been a long, long, long drama, and I'm going to do a separate video on that, because this is, again, very much a part of the sign of our times that we're in. Really, really important, especially as we've got this influence of Aquarius very strongly now. And also, maybe as I mentioned, Aquarius, I just want to mention this too, which is that some of you have misinterpreted my comments about planetary ingresses not beginning astrological ages as to mean that we are not entering the age of Aquarius. All I'm saying is that although I personally believe that we are not yet in the age of Aquarius, certainly there's an overlap. These ages are 2,150 years long, roughly. So there is an overlap, but at the same time, the definition of an age is when the equinoxes move backwards into the next sign. And at the moment, sidereally, this is again an aspect of sidereal astrology, the equinoxes still happen in Pisces, and they will not shift into Aquarius for quite some time. So the movement of Pluto or any other slow-moving planet into Aquarius is not the beginning of the Aquarian age. I'm going to leave it at there. I don't want to have a huge debate about this. It's just an astrological technicality. You can believe whatever you want. This is the way we roll, especially with a stellium in Pisces and a stellium in Aquarius. Why bother keeping your feet on the ground? This is the time to think big. I want to start, I'll go back. We're going to just start with Aries, just so it makes it easier to keep track of where I'm going. So we're going to start with Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant sign. When I do these reports, it's always for Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And that's because either from the Ascendant or from what are called derived houses, I am reading the chart to describe what's going on in the different houses. So for Aries, we have this ongoing, of course, Chiron North Node. So this is really affecting you in terms of your own vision of yourself, your own identity, which is a big thing for Aries, because that's a lot of your quest in this lifetime is, who am I and who am I in relationship? A big part of your story. And certainly as the nodes are there, that is a really big part of this period up until January 2025, when the nodes shift. We have the full moon itself happening in your sixth house of health and habits and everyday work. And so there may be something that you're realizing around how you operate, how you are needing to change the way that you show up for yourself with regards to your health, or with regards to how you organize your work. Certainly, there's something here that you can learn about how you want to grow your finances or your income or your values, how you want to believe in the different values that you hold. There's a lot of influence in that sense for you, Aries, for a very, very long time, because Saturn is in your 12th along with Neptune, along with where the sun and that's where the sun and Mercury are. And that's also where you're thinking from an unconscious place or from the past or from issues that might come from ancestral questions and things that are to do with your family, how you've had to navigate growing through a particular lineage. So a lot of these questions right now for you might even come from places where it's quite abstract. You're not quite sure why these issues are coming up, whether they're health issues, for example, which may have a psychosomatic component, or they might be things around how you are in terms of your how you sabotage yourself, in terms of how you allow things to happen that now is coming to your realization, I need this to change. Pluto going through your 11th for sure is part of this change, which is describing how you're looking into a different future now, new friends, new ways of organizing your social life, your networks, and what it is that you want to see going forward. It's also another money house. So the Jupiter and Uranus has a lot of your focus on money, and it's ruled by Venus in the 11th, which is a lot about gains and money. So perhaps that orientation of the moon in your 6th is more about how can I make the most of my working time, or how can I sort out my health, or how can I sort out my daily routine so that I'm able to function in such a way that I can feel financial security as well. And financial security is very important for Aries with Cancer on the 4th house. Right, so good luck with that. This is part of the lunar cycle. It's not lasting too long, and I'll be back with more information as we go through the week ahead, which is super impactful because there's so many aspects affecting us all. Taurus, this is happening in your 5th house. It's a lovely place to have a moon. The moon in the 5th is about where we realize aspects of our parenting. Perhaps you've got children, or you're considering having children, or there's something to do with your creativity and your self-expression. This might be even around hobbies and how you spend your free time. There may be a sense that you don't have enough free time, and now you need to change that, or you're aware of what it is that you want to grow in terms of creative hobbies, or doing sports, or self-care of some kind. Do you give yourself time off? This is important. There's a lot of undoing, the self-undoing, the 12th house, which can be related to childhood patterns. And of course, as the South Node moves through your 6th house, there's something that needs to change in terms of how you do your everyday life, how you take care of your health. And this will certainly be part of the realization here. It's like, now I know I want to do that thing. This is what I've been missing. This is the thing that I really want. And it's certainly based on what you're understanding about the 11th house, which is perhaps big changes around your future vision, or how you earn money. This is the 2nd house from the 10th. So it's how you earn money from the thing that you do. The 11th house is the house of gains in general. So it can also be that you're realizing there's different ways of growth and gaining funds. And that's especially because your ruler is in the 10th house. And so this can have something to do with career for some of you who are still actively working. Or it can be just ambitions in general, because you don't have to be working to have ambitions. And especially as Venus and Mars come together, that really emphasizes this sense of drive and having ambitions. And this is in a square to Jupiter, so that that Venus squaring Jupiter is really bringing about a great deal of energy around your ambitions and what you want to achieve, how you want to grow, and how you want to participate socially, or in terms of a career or vocation that is different based on what you used to do, that has a new vision for your future, new structure as well. Maybe who am I doing this with is another way of looking at that. And it's going to bring you a sense of personal growth and personal satisfaction. As long as that Jupiter's in your 1st house, it allows you to feel more possibility, more room for growth. So lots to explore there in terms of how you want to show up, how you want to express yourself. So enjoy that, Taurus. I'll speak to you in the next video. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. This is happening in your fourth house of family and home and what you feel you need to feel secure. It can be about property, and the moon particularly represents our house and home as well. So that might specifically be about that. Where do I live? How do I want to live? What is the quality of my house and home right now? This can also be a reflection on the issue of your personal time versus your professional time. Am I able to get enough time to see my family? Am I realizing that my intimate relationships are suffering because I'm spending so much time at work with Saturn in the 10th house all this time since last March? And all the way through February 2026, there will be a lot of pressure in terms of social demands or career demands, work ambition, etc. So this is a good time to reassess all of that. Venus, Mars, Pluto in your ninth house is talking about what do I do and why? What's my purpose here? What is the role that I really want? There's a new vision for that, a new sense of your sense of perhaps also who do you want to do that with. And I would have to see your natal chart to see how that maybe works in terms of your relationships to anybody in that house. Can be something to do with teaching, teachers, counselors, even your father. And of course, your ruler, Mercury, is in the 10th. So lots of your thinking is also about your aims for career, your ambitions, your goals. Maybe there's a lot that you need to deal with at work in a more technical way. One of the reasons you have such a creative expression out in the world is because of that Pisces 10th house. So that's when Mercury, when your ruler is up there, it's strong. All these planets are very strong in the 10th house. But in Pisces, it's different. So it's creative. It's much more out of the box kind of thinking. And that Mercury sun can give you a really sharp mind, especially Mercury opposing the moon can be a really sharp mind. And so this is a good time if you want to get deep into creative expression, especially because Jupiter and Uranus are in the 12th, which is also about your unconscious or about a way of expressing yourself that's just different. It's based on your dreams or based on other ways of exploring the mind. And of course, the North Node and Chiron come together in your 11th. So there may be something that you need to realize about a future goal or about a thing that you used to think that you want. Now you might need to either change your way of behaving around that or change your self-esteem obstacles or blocks or the way that you might feel about yourself, how you identify with yourself in order to achieve these new goals. And again, that depends on your natal chart, but it's something that you can mull over as the moon is there in the fourth house of what makes me happy, what makes me feel secure, what brings me a sense of being settled. So it's not so easy when the moon is in the fourth because there's inherently an unsettled quality there, but it's certainly where the focus is required right now. Okay, Gemini, make the most of that. I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, of course, the moon rules your sign, and so it's important to follow what the moon is doing. That's why cancers are known to be moody and changeable because the moon is changing constantly. It's moving around all the time. And here we have now a full moon. So there's a realization, in this case, really reflected on your mind. And this is the configuration of the chart exactly with Cancer rising. So this makes it even more potent in terms of universal time, at least. The moon is in the third house, which is considered the house of the moon's joy. And the sun is in the ninth house, which is the joy of the sun. And so there is an aspect of recognition of these placements of the planets that bring out the best of the situation for cancers because sun, moon, and rising. The placement of the moon opposite the sun is all about how you think about things, how you take action based on your higher sense of purpose, what your everyday communication is like. You're even bringing in your sense of your emotional nature into communication. When the sun is opposite the moon, there can be an increase in emotionality. And again, that will depend on your natal moon. It depends on your natal chart and other placements. Where is your moon placed, for example, for Cancer, sun, moon, or rising? If it's a sun, if it's a moon in Cancer, it's in the first house. That's at least we can say that. But it really does depend on your personal chart because the moon is so personal to you. The sun and the moon also represent mother and father, and the ninth house does also represent father. And so this might have something to do with your parents as well. There may be some issue around your father or something that you need to deal with around your parents. So that would, again, need to be seen in a natal chart to be sure. Now, you also have this incredible excavation of your unconscious and overcoming fears and overcoming issues, dealing with things around shared resources, including money that you earn from clients, issues about dealing with fears or psychological blocks, issues of dealing with other people's resources and money. That also includes the resources of support. Who's supporting you? It certainly looks like there's a lot of activity there going right through into March, as Venus and Mars will be staying there for a very long time. Of course, we've got Pluto there for 20 years, so that's something that will be ongoing. But this could be part of the inquisition or the inquiry around the victim martyr energy, where you might be holding yourself back from your actual vision or purpose for yourself, where you might feel incapable or you might feel unable to do what it is that you need to do. And that would be part of the Chiron North Node in the 10th house. Where do you need to stop being your own worst enemy? Where do you need to overcome issues of low self-esteem or low or an image that you have from childhood, for example? Again, this really depends on your natal chart because that would show up more clearly wherever you have Chiron as well. And then, of course, you've still got Jupiter building to a conjunction with Uranus in your 11th. So there's a lot of focus on your future, what it is that you want, how you want to reach out into groups and deal with groups, including your sense of how you earn money, what the gains that you have, the financial gains. And all of this will come from this place of understanding how to organize yourself day to day in your short-term goals and your what is your willpower, let's say, that's another third house term, allowing you to accomplish, and what might need to change. And this will reflect your mind. It will reflect the changing awareness, that's the moon, full moon, awareness of how what you're doing day to day is affecting your overall sense of purpose. Are you treading water and not getting anywhere? Are you actually undermining your higher potential for accomplishing things? And what needs to change? And so all of that is very, very heightened at this Virgo full moon for Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So good luck. I'll see you in the next video. And Leo, this is your second house. And so this has a lot to do, this is Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. This has a lot to do with your self-esteem, the way that you are maybe reaching out into your shared resources and how you might be aware of what you need to contribute to that. It can be about investments. It can be about family as well. Second house represents everything that supports you. Certainly, there's a lot of activity in your house of others. That's your 7th house of relationships, business partnerships, business, as well as the 8th house of shared resources. And that comes to also an awareness of obstacles that might be from old memories or traumas or family issues, secrets. And you might be coming to a realization around certain things about what it is that you want. And that's coming from also from your values. And that certainly would be very highly impacted in terms of the Jupiter, Uranus having loads of time now through your 10th house, giving you lots of courage and ambition around your career or vocation, what it is that you feel you're here for, how you reach out into the world, and how you show up socially. And of course, you are ruled by the sun. When the sun is in the 8th house, it's a time where, this particular time of the year, you may not be feeling super good. It may not be so easy. It can create a certain amount of a low mood potentially, because it's a house that's hidden. It requires a lot of deep understanding, but it can also, for those of you who are on a more mystical path, if you're on a more sort of spiritual or occult path, it can give you incredible insights. And so you can also, for Leo rising, sun, moon, you can really start to look into ways of actually earning money, for example, from occult or mystical practices, from psychological work, from whether that be just to boost yourself or actually as a job, for example. Because Saturn is ruling your sixth house of everyday work and health from your eighth, that contributes to that as well for quite some time, 2 more years. So, right, lots to chew on there, Leo, and certainly lots of change in your house of relationship, a new start in your house of relationship because the Venus and Mars are coming together there. I'll speak more about that in another video, but that'll be on the 22nd, where there's a whole new energy for a new start in relationship. So there we are. Good luck with all of that. I'll see you in the next video. And Virgo, this of course is really personal to you. So the moon is in your first house, sun, moon, and rising. It's going to affect Virgos very personally. And looking across the table at the person in front of you, there's a lot going on. And so your ruler, Mercury, is in the seventh house. It's connected to the other. It's connected to what is maybe important to talk about, maybe something that you want to engage with another, how you want to show up in terms of communication or conversations or exchanges, including financial exchanges with others. This is a period of time where there's a lot of reflection on authorities, maybe even with Saturn there, on a feeling of being obstructed, held back in some way in relationships. It can be also where you realize you need to get more clarification around relationships, and you're being more strict, you're being more clear about what you need in relationships. That's really good, actually, for Virgo rising, because you tend to pick up strays and take on a lot of people who are in that victim martyr energy. And your mission in life is to heal and sort people out, whether they want it or not, Virgo. It's part of your charm. And here, especially with Neptune having gone so long through your seventh house, there may be a bit of a lack of clarity around that adds to this inherent quality. So it's great to have that Saturn sun reflecting back on the moon saying, hold your horses. Is this the right thing for me? How do I feel about that? How am I actually resonating with that? You have an extra sensitivity to other people. It doesn't mean that you need to jump in and rescue everybody. Having said that, you got a ton of energy in your sixth house. So you do feel all fired up about work, all fired up about healing. Perhaps that's also a path of healing yourself through physical or psychological or emotional healing. And there's a new start there, new relationships, maybe a new role in work or a new relationship through work, potentially. And also because we've still got that really strong impact of Chiron North Node in your eighth house of the unconscious and areas of other people's resources, potentially trauma or family secrets and things that have been affecting you from, the back of your awareness for a long time. So this healing story can be really empowering right now. With Pluto going through the sixth house, there's going to be a big change in the way that you show up every single day for the rest of the next 2 decades, where it's really it's not going to be like before. You are different as you go through every single day, and there might come through certain things that you really need to overcome, and so you're becoming aware maybe here of what that might look like in terms of how you relate to people. It could be very healing to understand how you are in intimacy, how you are in relationships. Jupiter and Uranus in your ninth are really supportive. That's a wonderful place for Jupiter. It's great up in the ninth house, and gives you a lovely sense of vision, gives you a lovely sense of potential, and having a sense of what is my purpose, what am I here for, what do I believe? This is that road to God, if you like, the house of Dharma, the house of spirit. And with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction coming up there, I'd say that that's also due for some really interesting new insights. So good luck, Virgo, with all of that. I'll see you in the next video. And Libra, we have this all happening in your 12th house. So a lot of this is apparently behind the scenes. It can be around how you recognize that you are doing something that needs to stop because it's not helpful for you. Your everyday life is really highlighted at this time for an extended period of time because Saturn is going through your 6th house. Saturn works really, really well for Libra. So it's actually good for you. It supports you. It might give you a sense of being able to say no in a way, because one of the reasons that Libra has that reputation of being super accommodating is because the 6th house is Pisces, and that's like super accommodating and not really being able to say no to doing work or doing things that other people might want them to do. This is the house of obligations and contracts and so on. And now you can realize with the 12th, the moon in the 12th, where you might be needing to say a more clear no as a single word sentence. And also the moon there can highlight the unconscious awareness of things that might be things coming to your mind now that you're newly aware of, or that it's old stuff that you're now able to recognize as useful. Could be even coming from ancestral stuff or unconscious psychological patterns, especially as you have Uranus and Jupiter in the 8th, which can bring things from the deepest recesses of your awareness. It can be mystical, contributes to occult learning and understanding. And this is also quite interesting, helpful for support coming from other people as well, even if it might be erratic with that Uranus there. Or it might be different people that are supporting you, people who are different from your usual. So we've got Chiron North Node in your 7th house. There's some new way of being in relationship that becomes really important because it's part of a pattern that might be, you're also maybe realizing around how you show up in relationships. Something needs to change. Something needs to, on your end, something needs to change so that something new can happen in the 7th house. This could also mean that you're meeting somebody who's quite healing, that there's a potential for connecting with somebody who leads you to healing. This is also the case when you have Jupiter in the 8th, that you can get really good counsel, really good help from somebody very constructive. And of course, your ruler Venus is in the 5th. That's always very pleasant. The potential is very strong for a new relationship, or again, a new way of being in relationship as they come together this week. Mars is ruling your 7th house, Venus rules you. And that newness is potentially very healing, or it's coming through a realization of what you need to change in order to be happy and more settled in relationship. And of course, Pluto going through your 5th is going to be changing your sense of what you need to be happy for a very, very long time. This might have something to do with children. That would depend on your natal chart. But at the very least, it's your self-expression, your love. Relationships of all kinds are really powerfully highlighted for Libras, which kind of goes with the territory, right? So make the most of that, Libra, and I'll see you in the next video. We have Scorpio now rising with the moon in the 11th house of the future, your vision for yourself in the future, money that you might earn from things that you do, your career or business that you might run. This is a realization perhaps also around friendships, your vision for how you want to socialize or how you want to connect with people. And this is especially accompanied by your ruler in the 4th, conjoining Venus in the on the 22nd, so later this week or just before this full moon, along with Pluto. So there's a big change in terms of what you feel you need to feel secure, what it is that represents home. And so this can be a realization around what you want or how you need to experience your future. There's just a really strong feeling and awareness around that. And a lot of that is coming from something to do with your creative expression or children, or things that might have to do with business if you are a business person, because you do have Jupiter, Uranus in the 7th, which is another business house. And Saturn itself rules your 3rd house of commerce from now the 5th, which is entrepreneurship. So if you're into business, there's a realization of how you're earning your money, perhaps with this Chiron North Node, you're kind of thinking, I'm working too much, or I need to do something different, or my everyday job or my everyday health habits or structures are just not working for me, and I need to fix this. Because this is potentially also about relationships that are business partnerships or life relationships, this can also be, for example, a realization around how you show up in relationships and what needs to change there, because we do have the South Node in the 12th. That's a very spiritual placement when the South Node is in the 12th. You might be realizing that some of your goals are now less materialistic than before, and now you're really waking up to a new way of aspiring to a new way of doing your everyday work, your everyday thing, based on your self-expression, based on what it is that you want in your everyday happiness and what you need to feel secure. Right. I'd need to see your natal chart to really be able to tell you more about that, Scorpio, but dig in. That's your style anyway. There's a lot here that is going to change in your everyday life going forward in a really major way over the next couple of years, especially. So try to really focus in on what you want your future to look like and give yourself a sense of a direction, a plan for the future. So see you in the next video, Scorpio. Sagittarius, this is happening in your house of career. So this is quite important because you can think of this as your social status. How do you engage with the world outside? Or it can be your vocation as well. It's your house of ambition, what you find important to do in the world. And we have this at the same time as your ruler, Jupiter, is in your sixth house. So this has a lot to do with what it is that you do every day, your job, if you like to describe it as that, or if you're not working any longer, or you're financially independent, why not? Then it's what you do every day, how you take care of yourself, how you structure your day. And that moon in the 10th is highlighting something about what it is you want, how you want to manifest that. It's certainly been changing while the South Node is moving through your 11th, because that seems to express that an old goal is not working for you anymore. There's a vision that's different now based on what it is that you would like to see, how you want to feel yourself expressing going forward. And it seems that you're quite busy as well, Jupiter going through the sixth. And make sure that you're not just busy for the sake of it, Sagittarius, because you can, this may be what you're realizing, where you realize that there's a sacrifice. There's something that you're sacrificing with Saturn going through the fourth house, that the busyness might be taking you away from what's important in terms of what do I need now, psychologically or emotionally, or even materially, in terms of where I live, how I structure my everyday life, what grounds me. That's an ongoing story with Saturn going through your fourth house until February 2026. We also have quite a lot of activity in your third house still. And so there's quite a lot of influence here around your busyness, your everyday choices, your everyday goals, if you like, and what it is you want to see in your everyday health or work situation. Venus ruling your sixth from the third. And of course, that moon is ruled from the fourth. So there's something that you're reflecting on that could also have something to do with your family of origin or your country of origin, or what you might call your lineage, and what it is that you might need to be doing that requires a change outwardly in terms of how you operate or how you see your social role. Difficult to be more clear with this kind of a chart, because it gets very personal, and in the bottom of the chart can be very emotional, very psychological, gets into the nitty-gritty of things. But nonetheless, that's what I've got for you, Sagittarius, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Capricorn, this is happening in your ninth house of what is my purpose? What do I believe? What do I have faith in? And so there's an awareness here based on what you're thinking about at this time, or how you're communicating with people. Your ruler is there in the third house for quite some time. This might have something to do with siblings or your extended family as well, your neighborhood. Maybe what you're realizing around that can feel either like a restriction or like an obligation. Your ruler Saturn is often where you feel that you are duty bound, where you feel that you have to take responsibility for things. And so maybe you are feeling more responsible around issues of, this could also be an issue of commerce, because you do have also lots of money and investment energy right now with Pluto, Mars, and Venus in your second, and also Jupiter, Uranus in the fifth house of entrepreneurship. So maybe you're really thinking in terms of, what do I want to see in my future? What's my purpose if I were to get involved in either writing, teaching, business, entrepreneurial activities? This could reflect also issues around your children, if you have any. Yeah, it can be about travel. Third house is also travel, or travel with a short distance practical goal. The moon in the ninth loves to travel. It's all about finding new experiences and new outlooks on life that then relate back to how you communicate and how you feel about everything. Again, difficult to say specifically without seeing the natal chart. Nonetheless, there's a lot going on in terms of your home and hearth and home, you could call it, where you live, how you live, with whom do you live, and also healing something around perhaps your family of origin, or around what you feel you need to feel secure, what it is that you need to be happy. And a big job after 15 years of Pluto in the first. So you would have done quite a lot of housekeeping there. And now, depending on your natal chart, there's a feeling of relief. There's a feeling of something new coming in, new values based on what you've understood about yourself. And also the Mars and Venus conjunction it's a new opportunity for setting new goals in terms of your values, or in terms of income, in terms of how to establish financial security as well. Difficult to say more than that, Capricorn, but I'll leave it there. I think this is very favorable for you. It's trining you, with Jupiter trining both the moon and your first house. And so that looks pretty good for Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising, and in general. But I would, of course, need to see the natal chart as always. So good luck with that, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, of course, you've been on the hot seat for quite some time now. So you're probably relieved just to have the sun at least, and Mercury moving out of your first house, so you can sit down maybe with a cup of tea for a minute. The moon is in your eighth house, so there's a lot of awareness that can be about how you share money with other people, sharing resources, getting support from other people. This can be about intimacy as well. It can be about clients, about how you get money from clients, how that works for you, especially as the ruler of your seventh is in your second house. And there may be something you need to sort out in terms of your clients, either relationships or the income. This can also be something to do with taxes or money that you have negotiated around some kind of investment. You've got a lot of thinking here around home, property, over a long period of time, with Jupiter and Uranus in your fourth, as well as all of that energy in your finance house. The second house is also family. So this can also be awareness of family secrets, something that's hidden. So the second house is everything that supports you, including the family around you. So there's probably some realization around that as well. A new cycle of relationship for you in the first house, a new sense of how to be in that yin yang kind of balance. Your new aims in terms of a passion that you might have, whether it be for yourself or for a project. In the houses ruled by Venus and Mars. So again, I would need to see your natal chart and how that would affect you specifically. It can be a very vague and general desire for something new, but how does that show up specifically? It's not super clear. Could be about house and home, because we do have that square from Venus, Mars to Jupiter in your fourth. It is very personal to you. So again, a really, really personal season. So sort of January, February, March, is really full on energy for Aquarius. It's a big time for you. So think in terms of more what it is that might be hidden from you, old ways of overcoming fears, or old beliefs or patterns that you might need to become aware of. And of course, for any issue around mysticism or occult practices, this is a great time to have those kinds of realizations as well. So make the most of that, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Pisces, this for Sun, Moon, and Rising in Pisces, this is happening in your house of relationships. So full moon in the house of relationship shows you what is going on in the house of relationship, what's happening in terms of the people there or the way that you are relating. And that seventh house is also a house of business partners, and so on. So there can be quite a lot that you're realizing needs to be adjusted there. And that can be reflected back to you from the people. And so you take on that learning and you do something about it, because you've got Saturn in your first house. So it's really about taking responsibility for yourself in the context of relationships. Mercury, of course, is ruling your seventh house and conjunct the sun in opposition to the new moon. New moon is at 5+ degrees. Don't look at the degree points. I'm just moving through the chart as I go sign by sign. And so it's in a strong opposition to Mercury, strong opposition to the sun, and to Saturn. So all of that is teaching you something about what you need to do. Do listen to the introduction where I talk about the victim martyr energy, which is part of that natural cycle, or that natural axis between Virgo and Pisces. And how you think and how you take responsibility for things is really about overcoming any disempowering energy around victimhood or martyrdom, and how others might be making you feel obliged, and so on and so on. Just review the introduction. There's certainly something new coming here around self-esteem, around how you earn money, what is important in family. So issues around family, maybe some family story that requires some kind of healing based on your childhood or based on what is affecting family right now. Pluto is in your 12th along with Venus and Mars as well. So lots of what is going on here has an impact on you deeply psychologically, that maybe stuff you're not really able to dig out, difficult to see, difficult to really know. But it's part of the South Node in the 8th, is overcoming patterns that are hidden and releasing that. So you bring it out into the light and find a new way of relating to that based on what you value, based less on what others value. So that Pluto, Mars, Venus is starting a whole new cycle in your 12th house, which includes foreign lands, people and places abroad, where it is that you want to understand yourself better, things that might be going on behind the scenes. This can include relationships that are difficult to disclose for any reason, not necessarily immoral reasons. It can be that, but not necessarily. And so new contracts, new things that you're connecting with can be reflected, because we also have that Jupiter ruled by Venus in your 3rd along with Uranus. So this can be about, contracts or obligations or connections through communication, through learning, through teaching, through spiritual understanding with people at a distance, and including potentially also ancestral or other beings from kind of beyond the veil. So all of this is in the cards there for Pisces. I think there's a lot to contemplate in terms of how you interact with people, how you want your relationships to feel at this time, and going forward, how you would like to see the next cycle shaping up in a way that you take responsibility for your interactions as well. So there you are, Pisces. And so I wish everyone the very best, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.